Exactly. So let's unpack this. I want you to close your eyes for a second. Unless you're driving, please do not close your eyes if you're driving, but just picture a theme park.
Right.
What immediately pops into your head? Is it, giant mice, princess castles made of shiny fiberglass?
Long lines, overpriced hot dogs.
Exactly. We usually think of them as these massive,
Escape mechanism.
yeah, escapes. Places built on pure fantasy or, existing movie intellectual property, adrenaline rushes. You
Yeah.
go there specifically to leave the real world completely behind you.
Which is fine. But today we're looking at something completely different.
Mm-hmm.
We're diving into this massive stack of documents. It's basically the design Bible for a place called Adventure Harbor.
And the deeper I got into this design canon, really, the more I realized this isn't just an amusement park. It is a simulation of a working civilization.
That is exactly the perfect way to frame it. What we're looking at today isn't just a random collection of roller coasters.
Yeah.
It is explicitly designed as a living, breathing civilization.
Mm.
The documents describe a canon built not on magic or wizards or pixies, but on craftsmanship, on harmony and shared identity.
And that is the massive hook for me. There are literally no wizards here.
None.
There is no magic wand that just waves and fixes everything. Everything in this world is supposed to be completely man-made, built by hands, engineered. It just feels, I don't know, it feels very grounded.
It is grounded, but it's also highly aspirational.
Mm.
And really, the mission of our deep dive today is to understand how 6 completely distinct societies with totally different philosophies, different aesthetics, different goals, how they can actually coexist in one physical space.
Right.
And more importantly, how the physical design of that world reflects very specific ethos about progress and community.
There's this quote right at the beginning of the source material that really set the tone for me. It basically acts as the thesis statement for this entire enormous project. It just says, harmony is a braid, not a blend.
A braid, not a blend.
Yeah.
That is the foundational philosophy here. Because, usually when we talk about diverse groups coming together, we fall back on the melting pot metaphor.
Right, where everything just melts down into one uniform soup.
Exactly. But a braid is fundamentally different.
In a braid, the individual strands are still totally visible. They don't disappear into each other.
Right. You don't have to dissolve your own identity to be part of a whole. You weave your distinct strand into the larger structure to actually make it stronger.
Hmm.
And that distinction drives literally every architectural choice we're about to see.
So here is our roadmap for this deep dive. We are going to look at the origin story of this place, which is surprisingly complex and really defies the usual tropes. Then we'll take a sort of walking tour of the 6 outposts, the lands, to see how they function and look at the subtle ways they influence each other.
The unseen connection.
Yeah. And finally, we'll talk about the actual people who work there, because even the employee handbook is a massive part of the lore.
It's a fascinating structure. So where do we begin?
Let's start right at the beginning, the origin story. Usually in these massive world-building scenarios, whether it's, a video game or a blockbuster movie, a society is formed because of a war or a collapse, some big dramatic cataclysm.
Right. The post-apocalyptic trope is everywhere. You survive the end of the world, and then you build a society out of the rubble.
Yeah.
But Adventure Harbor totally flips that. The documents state clearly, Adventure Harbor began not with conquest or collapse, but with a meeting.
It's a convergence. You have 5 different societies arriving at this one specific stretch of coastline, and they all came for different reasons, right? They weren't an invading army.
They absolutely weren't. And those reasons matter, because they define the unique personality of the groups we'll see in the modern park. Some came seeking trade routes, some were looking for knowledge, or following celestial signs.
I think some were just refugees, right?
Yes, refugees seeking shelter from storms, or what the text calls shifting fortunes.
And some literally just followed the stars.
Exactly. And some were honestly just curious.
Hmm.
But the crucial point in the lore is what happened when they actually met. They found this harbor where the ocean currents converged and the celestial lines crossed. And initially, they just built temporary outposts.
Right, just trading stalls,
Yeah.
shelters, just a waypoint to rest before moving on.
But then the turning point happens.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of drifting apart, which is what human history tells us usually happens, fighting over the resources in the bay, they stayed.
Yeah.
They realized that their differences were actually incredible opportunities. The source material specifically said they shared tools, shared stories, shared craft.
I love that so much. It wasn't a hostile takeover. It was a realization that, hey, your map making skills really help with my trading routes. Let's work together.
Precisely. And that is exactly how the hub was formed. It wasn't built as a fortress to keep people out. It was a crossroads. It was the physical center where they exchanged goods and ideas. And this leads to one of the absolute core principles of the harbor, the idea that progress is not a line. It is a circle with many paths.
Progress is a circle. I stopped on that sentence for a long time when I was reading. That is such a cool concept for a theme park layout. It explains why the lands look so different from one another, but still feel connected. It's not about moving from primitive to advanced.
No, and that's a huge trap many world builders fall into. They think advanced just means more shiny technology and lasers. But here, the agricultural society is just as advanced as the industrial one. They are just on a different path of the same circle.
It sets the stage for everything else we are about to discuss. The harbor is essentially a clock face, 6 distinct areas arranged in a circle, all feeding into each other.
So let's take the tour.
Let's walk the clock. I really want to get into the sensory details here because the design document gets incredibly granular. Let's start at, say, 10 or 11 o'clock on the dial. Explorer's Point.
The wayfinders.
The wayfinders. The vibe here is calm, ancient, wise. The documents describe them as the ones who originally arrived by following the stars. Their core philosophy is the world reveals itself to those who pay attention.
They are the ultimate observers. In the physical park design, they are the map makers and the astronomers. And what's fascinating to me is how they use technology. We usually think of ancient wisdom as being inherently anti-tech,
Right.
but the wayfinders actually embrace it.
But not for escapism.
No, they don't use tech to escape reality or look at screens. They use it to see reality better. The design notes mention using AR augmented reality to help guests see star charts or hidden navigation lines overlaying the actual physical world around them.
It's like saying, here's a telescope, look closer. It's enhancing the natural world, not completely replacing it with a digital screen.
Exactly. And their architecture reflects that incredible stability.
Yeah.
It's carved stone, deeply weathered wood. It feels permanent, like it has weathered 1,000 storms and will weather 1,000 more. But then you move clockwise on the map to Whisperwood, and this feels like a total 180-degree turn.
Whisperwood is the home of the Seed Keepers. If Explorer's Point is about looking up at the vast stars, Whisperwood is about looking down at the roots. The vibe here is gentle, glowing, just completely alive.
Stories are seeds. That's their motto.
Which is such a deeply poetic way to look at agriculture and farming.
It really is. They brought communal gardens and warmth to the harbor. The architecture here is incredibly cozy. We're talking tree hollow reading nooks, bioluminescent flora that actually glows at night.
I love the idea of a massive theme park land that is just dedicated to reading, like just sitting in a carved-out tree hollow with a good book. Usually theme parks are essentially streaming at you to run to the next loud ride.
Right. It emphasizes that adventure isn't always loud. Sometimes it's entirely internal. It's a bold design choice to include such quiet, reflective spaces in a high-traffic entertainment environment. But if you do want loud, or at least highly energetic, you just move to the next land. The luminous coast.
The Mariners, now we're talking. This is the breezy, kinetic, wildly optimistic land. Their philosophy is discovery is a celebration.
This is where the energy really picks up. The Mariners are the ones who followed the wind. They brought clean energy systems, advanced hydroponics, and wind-powered technology to the harbor. The aesthetic is very solar punk.
Solar punk is such a great descriptor for this. It's not that gritty, dystopian sci-fi we usually see. It's bright.
It's super airy. Lots of glass structures, elevated walkways, and massive kinetic sculptures that actually move with the real sea breeze coming off the water.
Yeah.
It feels genuinely optimistic about the future.
And the attractions here are things like wind-powered gliders. It's all about physical motion. It's a stark contrast to the quiet stillness of Whisperwood, but they sit right next to each other on the map.
And that proximity is highly intentional. It physically shows how nature, the deep woods, transitions into the harnessing of nature through the wind. But let's keep moving around the circle. Next, we have the Harbor Works District.
The Sparkwrights. These are the engineers. The vibe is industrious, clever, highly energetic. Their motto is, ingenuity is a shared spark.
This is essentially the living workshop of the harbor. The Sparkwrights are the ones who built all the underlying infrastructure, the trolleys, the massive gears, the bridges connecting everything. The design here features exposed gears, huge water wheels, and what the documents call Rube Goldberg walkthroughs.
I love that term. So instead of a traditional dark ride where you just sit in a cart and passively watch, you're actually walking through the inner workings of a giant machine.
Exactly. It celebrates the actual process of building and inventing. It's noisy, sure, but in a very rhythmic, productive way. It's meant to show the guest exactly how the harbor works mechanically on a day-to-day basis.
And then moving on, we come to what might be the most relatable land for a lot of people, but honestly, it feels a bit odd in this mix at first glance. America Avenue.
The planters. This is the front porch of the harbor. The vibe is warm, familiar, celebratory. Their whole philosophy is memory is a gathering place.
This is the land of handcrafted quilts, potters, and literal storytelling on the front porch. Why put this right next to the high-tech gears and the solar gliders?
Because you desperately need grounding. The planters represent the domestic beating heart of the civilization. It's not always about discovering new lands or building massive machines. Sometimes it's just about hanging out with your neighbors.
It's a third place.
Exactly, the ultimate third place. They are the ones who turned the harbor from a temporary trading post into a true community. They brought the seasonal festivals and the communal food. It grounds all the high-concept sci-fi and fantasy elements of the other lands in something very distinctly human.
And finally, right at the center of it all, down at 6 o'clock on the map, the hub.
The home of the harbor folk. This is where unity physically happens. It's the central gathering place where all the water and the stories converge into one basin. It's designed with all these braided architectural motifs to physically represent that thesis statement of weaving the cultures together.
So we have these 6 distinct outposts, but here's where it gets really interesting for me, diving into the text. The source material spends a huge amount of time talking about unspoken exchanges.
Yes, this is the braid concept in active motion.
Right, because in a poorly designed theme park, you have Cowboy World, and right next to it is Space World, and there is a hard, visible line between them, a literal concrete barrier. But here, the societies have deeply influenced each other over time.
They call them natural resonances in the documents. It explicitly states that these weren't formal treaties signed by leaders in a boardroom. They were subtle influences absorbed through shared meals and shared hard work. It's cultural osmosis.
Can you give us an example of how that actually looks in the physical design? Because that sounds incredibly hard to pull off visually.
Absolutely. Take the wayfinders and the seed keepers. The wayfinders are traditionally very logical, precise map makers. The seed keepers are highly emotional, rooted storytellers. But over generations, the wayfinders influenced the seed keepers to be more mathematically observant, and the seed keepers influence the wayfinders to be warmer and more grounded.
And visually, how does a guest see that?
You might see leaf-carved compasses integrated into the forest paths, or celestial story stones in the gardens. It's a seamless blend of the organic and the navigational. Or look at the sparkrights in the wayfinders. You might find heavy sparkright brass gears inside a delicate wayfinder exhibit to help them track the stars more accurately. Or you'll see wayfinder geometric patterns woven into a sparkright engineering blueprint.
I noticed one specific detail about the planters and the mariners that I just thought was brilliant. The mariners are all about high-tech wind power and kinetic batteries, and the planters are about traditional quilts and wooden porches. But the design notes say you'll find mariner-crafted kinetic lanterns being used to light up America Avenue during their evening festivals.
Exactly. It shows that they trade, they actively share, they use each other's distinct innovations to improve their own lives without ever losing their core identity.
Oh.
The planters didn't stop being planters. They didn't adopt solar punk clothing. They just got way better, more efficient lights for their porches. It's an incredibly subtle, sophisticated layer of world building.
Speaking of sophisticated, we really have to talk about the water system, because the water in this park isn't just plumbing for the bathrooms, it's a massive metaphor.
It is quite literally the bloodstream of the entire harbor. The hydrology is designed to be fully realistic. The water flows north, down to the south, and then out to the west. It starts high up in the mountains of Whisperwood and an eastern spring, converges right in the central lake of the hub, and then flows out to the ocean.
But there's a hidden detail here that I absolutely loved when I read it. I think it's actually my favorite part of the whole design document, the hidden pump house.
Yes. This is where the high-minded philosophy gets intensely physical.
Tell us about it.
So, physically speaking, there is a massive hidden pump house concealed behind the main waterfall in Whisperwood. Its actual mechanical job is to complete the loop, to pump millions of gallons of water back up the mountain so it can flow back down again.
Right, just standard civil engineering. Gravity only works one way.
But the symbolic meaning given to the text is profound. The canon says it symbolizes that the harbor sustains itself entirely through intention. It means that true harmony isn't just nature taking its course. It's not accidental. A diverse community doesn't just stay magically peaceful forever. Entropy, things naturally falling apart, is the baseline state of the universe. It requires a mechanism, a deliberate choice to keep the positive energy flowing. You have to actively pump the water back up to the top. It's a constant, sweaty, active choice to keep the collaboration going.
That is surprisingly deep for a theme park water feature. It's not just water flows downhill. It's water flows because we continually work to keep it flowing.
Exactly. And if that pump stops, the lake dries up. The harmony physically ends. It reminds the guests, even subliminally, that civilization is maintenance.
I love that phrase. Civilization is maintenance. And that brings us perfectly to the final piece of the puzzle, the human element of the park.
Right. We've touched on this briefly, but the documents are very, very firm on this rule. Crafted, not magical.
That is the golden rule. All the wonders in the harbor are built by human artistry and engineering. And to prove it to the guests, they have an actual artisan residency program.
This blew my mind when I read it. They don't just have actors in costumes pretending to be blacksmiths or potters. They have real-world, highly skilled artisans living and working right inside the park.
So if I walk into Explorer's Point, the person sitting there drawing the star map isn't an actor holding a prop pen.
No, they're a legitimate cartographer making a real usable map. The kinetic light artists working in Lumina's coast are actually welding and building real sculptures. The quilters sitting on the porches in America Avenue are actually sewing intricate quilts.
It makes the park a functional production facility, not just a static display case.
It extends to all the everyday employees, too. The documents consistently call them harbor folk. They aren't cast members. They aren't performers. They're fully realized citizens of this world.
And they have their own rich backstories. But what really caught my eye in the HR section was the role evolution system.
Yes, the evolution system. This is simply brilliant HR and narrative design.
Explain how that actually works in practice.
So usually in a massive theme park, if you work in, say, Fantasyland selling pretzels, and then you get transferred to Tomorrowland to run a ride, you just change your costume and pretend the last year of your life never happened.
Right. Total reset button on your identity.
But here, the employee's persona actively evolves with them. If a seed-keeper gardener from Whisperwood gets transferred down to the Harbor Works District to work on maintaining the trolleys, their character openly acknowledges that career change to the guests.
So they might say something like, I used to grow plants up in the woods, but now I'm learning how to build the water wheels that irrigate them.
Precisely. They carry their personal history with them across the lands. It constantly reinforces that core idea of the braid. The people themselves are the ones physically weaving the connections between the different outposts.
That is so cool. It turns standard employee turnover, which is usually a headache, into genuine narrative depth.
It creates an undeniable sense of a living, evolving history. It really drives home the idea that this place, that Adventure Harbor, is a working model of cooperation.
That is the ultimate takeaway for me from all these documents. The source material presents Adventure Harbor as a place where distinct cultures actually strengthen each other through those natural resonances, rather than through any kind of forced assimilation. They don't try to be exactly the same. They just try to be compatible.
That's it, exactly. Compatibility over conformity.
And that really circles back to you, the listener. Why should you care about a massive design document for a fictional theme park? Because the underlying philosophy is so relevant to how we live today. There is a line near the very end of the canon that says, a home is only whole when everyone can move through it with ease.
That is a remarkably powerful standard for any community, whether it's real or fictional. Are we building spaces, physical spaces, or social ones, where people can move through them with ease and be fully welcomed exactly as they are? Are we braiding, or are we just forcing a blend?
And remember that pump house.
Yes, the constant intention.
That is the final thought I really want to leave you with today. We talked about the hidden pump house concealed behind the waterfall, the actual machine that keeps the water flowing and the harmony alive through pure intention and hard work.
It raises a really fascinating question. If a massive civilization or a local community, or honestly even just a family, requires a hidden mechanism of intention to keep functioning smoothly, what is the pump house in your own life?
What is the unseen thing you are doing behind the scenes to actively keep the water flowing? Because as we've learned, it doesn't just happen by accident. That's something to really mull over. Thanks for diving into this with us.
It was an absolute pleasure.
We'll see you in the next deep dive.